There was that one thing on the west side. Another spot. By my fire back there. You're coming across me, come over to the driveway, walk there, the driveway, and I'll give you like. Yeah, they got a trail going into the gardens, area where the but then they're also going to the now. I see a lot of. Right on. Oh, sure, yes, that's what. No, oh, for the heats, yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that either. Oh, so. And I don't think they had any problems here. So. You have even asked us here. Yeah, I don't know. I go. But the relationship's not good, you know. But then some. Kind of him in the arm, and they were gonna call me to have a phone call. I don't think I'm gonna say something so much, but I don't think. I don't serious with that. I did everything. Yes. We already go on the farm.
That's
an hour off.
Yes.
6 o'clock, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the December 15th, 2026 Credit River City Council meeting. We will begin with approving or amending the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda any council members would like to recommend, or I will take a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, could you? Mr. Mayor, could you please pull 3.4? I just have a couple of questions on the contract.
It will make 3.4 will be 7.4 in the regular session. That I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. Motion by Schomer, second by Slatterbach. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Consent agenda. Those items on the council agenda, which are considered routine or non-controversial, are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight on consent agenda, we've got 3.1 minutes from the December 1st, 2025 city council meeting. 3.2 resolution 2025-40, adopting the 2026 meeting schedule for the city of Credit River. 3.3 approve pay estimate number 2 for County Road 27 bypass lane project. 3.5 3% COLA increase for employees in 2026, and 3.6 the payment of claims and transfer requests as presented. With that, one last chance, if anybody'd like to discuss anything separately, otherwise I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Abe. Motion by Siderbock, second by Zonto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the council. The public forum be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss but will not take formal action on public forum presentations. Tonight, signed up for public forum, Mr. Conroy.
Good afternoon. How are y'all doing today?
Well, so far, Tim.
Question I have is, what's our budget for snow plowing? What do we spend a year? Has anybody got that? Pull that up.
100 grand this next year?
And that is those we have budgeted 100 for 26. Yeah.
And we spend it all last year, or is it?
This year?
For last year.
This year.
In 24 or
Yeah,
25?
year last year.
In 25?
We're in 25. We're still snow plowing in 25.
Okay. The year's not over. We plowed
Right.
twice.
We
plowed twice this year. Last year.
we
didn't
did
have
quite a bit in
much.
the spring. It snowed in the spring.
We had spent about 30,000 through October, Tim.
3,000.
In 25 through October. I don't know what we've spent in November, December.
I reached out to the driver that was coming by the house a couple of days back. They do not have an underbody underneath their vehicle. Underbody scrapes off the road that it snowed before he comes. Mom goes to the gym, comes back. Mom takes the kid to school, comes back. Everybody goes to work, comes back. When he plows, it gets compacted. His plow that he has is not able to get to the bottom to get it plowed. And now that we're a city and we're paying and we're increasing our taxes, is it able to get him to come back when it's warmer weather, or after the salt is starting to do its work to get it back to pavement? Texas is fine because they use it to get in and out, and half of Casey gets down to blacktop because they've shut off all the other exits. But from John Deere to the end of Johanna is not what we're paying for. So I guess my question is, from 2023, our taxes was 600, and now you want to get it to almost 700. What is my neighbors getting for that extra increase? And also my 120 neighbors are disappointed that the squeaky wheel didn't get the grease about repaving our street. They did all the other neighborhood, but not mine, and I was the one screaming the loudest to get from John Deere or Johanna to John Deere done. So I'm 2 questions, and I'll send an email if I have to. Is it possible to have a vehicle in his arsenal? I know we bid the contract, and have him wired to get a vehicle with an underbody underneath it. To bring out, to be a better performance of scraping the road down to the pavement once the snow has fallen, or to put pressure down to clear the road off. That's question 1. And question 2 is, with the tax going up, are we gonna end up at 15%, or we don't know? Well, what are we getting for what we're paying, I guess is the big picture. Everything is going up and up and up. Even Scott County failed at what they did on 27. I don't know what their plow shift is, but for the working stiff that had to get up and go to work that day after, Dakota County actually had it running water from the veterinarian or whatever to 35W, but yet 27 was a struggle, and 185th east and west was kind of tough. So I don't know what their shift is right now for plowing. It used to be really good, but now it seems like they're putting money elsewhere instead of on the roads plowing. So that's a question that I'm putting towards in the future. Are they able to get them to get up underbody or come back after they, because he can't salt his way out of it. He, when I talked to him and he came by the next time, he salted the hell out of it, but yet salt, because the snow doesn't go anywhere. And if anybody remembers how they got home on Tuesday, it was pretty dismal all over. But our street is still the same way, and since we've become a city, that's where most of our money, I think, is spent. Aside from trying to get water up north or other things, I think our main product is getting people plowed so they can get to and from. So any questions or anything I can answer on that?
I think we can have the city administrator talk with our plow contractor and work
See,
that through.
cause I mean, if we're doing 30,000 a month, whatever the contract is. He's only driving the truck, fuel, whatever it costs to maintain it. I don't know what the total budget was in 2024, what we paid him. And it was a pretty soft year last year. What did he do with that extra money, I guess is my question, because it looks like he didn't put it into the truck. Is my only question. Okay,
Call me, I'll explain what we've spent. I'll explain where our money's going. I'd be happy to do that with you.
I'm just, you know,
I think that-
on site and I can't.
Tim, you can work through our administrator on that.
I can't find it, and it's just. That's our biggest budget, what else are we spending it?
That's not our biggest at all.
It's not.
Plowing? No.
Public safety is,
So, no, and that's was another question is, I didn't make it to the meeting, it was busy. How many reports and police things are we having happen that we still need 2 officers when other ones come to help in? But I missed that meeting, so that'll be looked at maybe at another time. Thank you.
right, anybody else for open forum tonight?
I don't have an open forum, but you almost were directly to comment at the county.
Well, Scott County seems to be failing the last couple of years on 27 and other places, and they have a tow plow.
Yep, and I'll find out what's going on with that, and, because we don't have, sometimes we don't have enough, drivers, and they can only drive 8 hours a day, you know that, right?
Don't they go into snow and ice and they can go to 16?
14 depends, I don't know,
No, 14 now?
nope.
Well, commercially it's 14 with 10 off of between.
Mhm.
And
It depends on how they run their schedule. So if they're gonna need 10 off in between, if they're gonna run 8s and then take 10 off and go back out.
And that's if a guy wants to or can do whatever, I mean, it's,
Mhm.
finding plow drivers is not an easy deal these days, you know, you gotta sit by the phone waiting for it to ring. A lot of times it rings on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or whatever, and a lot of people just say, we don't want it for that, whatever, so but call me.
I agree.
Yep.
I haven't had a plow truck in 6 years. I was in a plow truck Tuesday through Saturday.
You were, okay.
All right, we're gonna,
So
we'll solve this outside of the meeting.
Call me.
We'll- All right, anybody else for public forum tonight? Seeing none, we'll close open forum and move into public hearings. Tonight, we're gonna hold the public hearing for the truth and taxation for the 2026 budget and levy. I'll pass it off to Finance Director Iverson for the
You open the
presentation.
public meeting first.
Can I get a motion to open the public meeting? Actually, we should really know, we want to do the presentation, then open the public hearing.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and the citizens.
Motion.
I will.
And the presentation, I will wait till it's up on the board,
There it is.
okay? So you can advance it. Okay, wired property tax bill varies from year to year. I'm gonna explain that. Some, you all have gotten your notices from Scott County. And so there's a number of things in there besides the tax increase. There's market value changes. There's budgets and levies for the various jurisdictions. There's special assessments. Those won't be talked about tonight. You don't have special assessments on the property tax statement you just got. But when you get your statement that you have to pay, the assessments will be on there. There could be voter approved referendums. Those are like what the school districts have. Cities might have one too. There could be changes in federal and state mandates. So when legislative changes come, it shifts things around. It could also be changes in aids and revenues from the state and federal governments, and then when the legislature makes any changes. The next slide I have on here is not something I'm going to go into, but I'm just letting you know, Minnesota has a very complicated property tax system. And so this will list out if you have any questions, if you have ag, land, residential, non-homesteading, this gives you an idea of how your net tax capacity is figured out. And I will go into an example of a property tax statement tonight, and I'll explain to you how that's calculated. And the slides will be available after the meeting, so if you want to go back to them, I put a lot of things in here for reference. So if you want to go back and read them, just know I'm giving you an overview tonight, but I put a lot of things in here that if you want to go back afterwards and read it, you can go back and try to figure out your own property tax statement, because I'll give it to you line by line. Changes in the market values for 26 and tax capacity. The market value changes of you and your other properties in your taxing district might change. So that might shift taxes around from one property class to another. In Minnesota, we don't have a mill rate. In a lot of states like Wisconsin, there's a mill rate. So if your market values in the city, like you have new developments and things added on, it automatically gets taxed, we get more money. We don't get that here in Minnesota. We have to do a levy. So even if we'd have a whole bunch of development, the city won't get anything unless they increase their property tax levy in their budget. So that's the only way we're going to get more. What would happen here if we didn't increase our levy when we've got more taxable property? It would shift things around between the different types of property classes, and it would also shift things around between the different properties based on how their market values went up or down. In Credit River, the median value of a single-family home increased by 8.1% from pay 25 to pay 26. So the median value in 25 was 687,950, and the median value now is 743,400. So there's two important changes. There's a change in the preliminary assessed value changes, the tax capacity value of your property. And there could be a change in the levy. And this illustration in this chart on this page, I have a 0% of an tax levy increase. And I did that so I could show you how the effects of the market values on different properties changing affected the taxes. So our change in our city's net tax capacity in 2024 was 15,461,146. In 25, it was 16,746,990. And in 25, it was 18,268,212. And as we get new development or we get things going on, it takes 2 years for that to hit the property tax levy. So when a new house is built, it'll be 2 years after it's built before we see that in our tax capacity and we're even getting any revenue from that house. So this just gives you an example of some residential impacts from year to year if nothing happened. And on the next one, or in a few slides, I'll show you exactly what that did in different property values. I did put two things in here to help you if you want to understand. So if your problem isn't the levy, but more because your property tax values went up, that's when you have to come in April when we have the Board of Equalization. So when they send you those notices out in spring, they will tell you where you need to go to talk about those. And so I did put two illustrations in here that you'll need to change the timelines on. The first one I found on the Scott County website, and it talks about how the assessor goes through, assesses your value. So they would have assessed your property last fall for what you're going to pay in 2027. Because what they did last fall, they will bring to the Board of Equalization in April of next year, and that'll be used for the taxes the year after. So there's always that lag in there. So the first one is from Scott County's website, and the second example that I have is one that walks through a little more in a diagram. And I've used this for many years in Ramsey County and in Goodhue County. And so this one kind of walks you through too. You just have to change the dates. But it's a diagram that I find helpful when people are understanding when they have to appeal certain things and what their options are for doing it. So those are for your reference. Next, we'll talk about the levy. So the 2026 revenue budgets is what 76% of our general fund is done by the levy, and 30%, 34% of our capital funds is levy, and 61% of our debt service funds is levy. So you can see here what our levy is in the black is what it currently is. The council has gone back and had 4 budget work sessions since we did the preliminary levy. So what you got in your property tax statements or your notice for your new taxes, that was our preliminary levy. That's not what the final is going to be. We couldn't increase it from that, but we could decrease it. So we have had 4 budget workshops and we have decreased the levy. So in red is what the preliminary levy was. So we have decreased the general fund by $100,000, that levy, and we have decreased the capital funds by $224,378. So there will be a decrease from what you saw that you got in the mail for this meeting. Then there's our 2026 expense budgets. You can see here where our general fund, 23, 24, 25 actual, and then what our budget is. We're increasing the general fund budget by $261,197. Our special revenue funds by $53,000. Our capital funds by $198,528. And our debt service funds will actually be going down $12,826 because we do have 1 bond issue that will be paid off in February. So these are the expense budgets, not what I showed you to the previous slide was the revenue budget. So if we move on to the next slide, I'm going to show you the comparison of the levy. On the right-hand side was the preliminary levy, and that was what your property tax statement was based off of that you got for this meeting. On the left-hand side is the final levy. You can see what we have done is gone from 16.86% of a tax rate to 15.08. That's the middle column if you look at the bottom number. We have decreased our general fund levy by $216,253 from what we did at prelim, or 116. It was $216.53 when we did 25. We increased it from 25 to 26, but now we have decreased that by $100,000. Public safety remains the same. We have 11.03% increase in our public safety levy. And then our capital levy, let me see. We have also decreased that, as I said before, and then the debt levy. So this will spell out each line item and what we've increased and decreased. And there was a change in fiscal disparities too, and that's a state program that's in the 7-county metro area that gets divided out. And so that changes every year, but it's also 1-year lag because it looks at what your levy was the year before, and that's what you get based on your allotment the next year. So we did lose a little bit of money there too. So right now, what you got in your property tax statement, our tax rate was 16.86%, and what it will be is in the proposed budget is 15.08%. So we did decrease that. Now, in the next slide, we're going to show you the proposed levy and tax capacity effects on property values. So here again, our preliminary levy was $3,165,878 if you add them all together, and we have decreased that to $284,000 or $2,841,500. So the tax rate before, as I said, was 16.859%. It is now going to be 15.083%. So that's a decrease of 12.2% or $152.40 on the group of properties that was 1,333 properties, excuse me. You can see if you look in that chart on the bottom, you can see the number of affected properties in each class there. So it kind of gives you an example based on differing values, what the impact is. Now, the next slide will give you a better idea. You can see that the bottom one is the proposed levy that you would have received in the mail. The top one is what we're proposing right now. So again, if you look at that third line down, that's at 1,333 properties. you can see that their average change to this year, your increase would be $50.43. And the change that's due to the market value and fiscal disparity change alone is $107.99. And the city by us, because our tax capacity increased because we had development, but we lowered our tax rate. So you actually have a decrease of $57.55. So the net increase of that property then is $50.43. And like I said, $107.99 would have been the increase due to fiscal disparities, but a minus $57.55 would be due to what the city did with its levy. So the city levy actually took it down 4.6%, where the market value and fiscal disparity would have brought it up 8.7% if the city would have just let the levy and the tax rate alone. The next graph shows you your tax rates and how they've been over since 2022. You can see where we were at 15.56%. In 23, we were at 16.14. In 24, we were at 17.1. In 25, we were back to 15.76. And this year, we're estimating 15.08. So talking about who collects your tax dollars, your total property tax is based on levies and tax rate, and it's divided based on this graph, or if you want to look at the dollar. Either one will give you a different picture. You could look at the pie. The schools are 33 cents, or it's 33%, either way. So for every dollar right now, you're giving every dollar taxes that you're paying, you're giving Credit River 23 cents of every dollar, you're giving Scott County 39 cents, you're giving the school district 33 cents, and you're giving the other taxing agencies like the HRAs, the soil, the mosquito control, Met Council, 5 cents. Now on the next 3 slides, I'll walk through a proposed tax statement. And so you can get an idea of how your property tax are calculated, because it is kind of confusing. So up in the top, you'll notice that it always says your values and classification. So it gives you your estimated market value. That's the value that you need to appeal in April each year. So that's the one that would have been April of this year that you could have appealed that, and they would have done it in the fall of 24. So this property here is valued at $743,400. And right now our combined tax rate with the city, county, school district, and the special taxing districts. Now remind you, this includes our preliminary levy, which was higher than what we're proposing it now. But I'm walking you through the statement the way you would have gotten it in the mail so that you can follow along. This one is classified as residential homestead. So for residential homestead, if a property is underneath 500,000, there would be, or let me see, there would be a credit on the $76,000 times 40% of the first $76,000 for the value exclusion. But after you get to a certain amount of value in your house, usually at 500,000 and above, the credit phases out. So I have the calculation in here in case somebody would have a property that was of lower value than what our median is. You could figure it out by taking the 76,000 times 40%, which is 30,400. And then it would have been reduced by 9% of tax market value over the 76. But you can see that that's going to zero it out. In the case of this home, it's going to be zeroed out because if you take that 743,400 minus the 76, you get a negative value. So there's no exclusion on this house. So our taxable market value is going to stay at 743,400, and there is no exclusion in it. So you then take your taxable market value by our tax rate, and which is 73.285431%. The classification is residential homestead. You would then take the way the property tax system in that chart I gave you way in the beginning on the different classifications. For homestead, it's 1% of 500,000, and then any value over the 500,000 is 1.25%. So I've calculated the tax capacity on this parcel here as 1% on the 500,000, which is 5,000, and then the additional 243,400 that goes above that goes on 1.25%, which is another $3,042. So the tax capacity that you're getting taxed on this property is going to be 8,042. So then you're going to take that 8,042 and multiply it times the combined tax rate. And that's a tax rate from all the jurisdictions, the county, the school district, the city, and a special district. You're also going to then take your market value, not the tax capacity, and you're going to multiply that times any market value referendums that are on there, like the school district has a referendum. So the property tax on this voter approved levy is $1,818. So the total property tax on this property is $7,707. $5,894 is based on tax capacity. $1,813 is based on the market value from the referendums. And again, this is excluding any special assessments. And you're going to have rounding errors if you try to do this at home because the county system doesn't round anything. It uses an infinite number of decimals until it gets to the very end. I happen to only be off $1 on here, but it's not uncommon when you try to do this if you're off by $25 or $40. It just has to be that the system keeps using the entire, whatever that fraction is. So what makes up your tax rate? Well, as I previously stated, our tax rate is 73.285431. But when I told you the city tax rate was 16.868662. So you can see on this statement that it has Scott County and it has the amount, it has the Regional Rail Authority in the amount, the City of Credit River, it has Lakeville Schools, it has Met Council, and then it has other special taxing districts. Those are all added into that rate. So if you want to know what the city's portion is, and that's the only portion we talk about at this meeting, as the other ones have the meetings for you to go and address those. So you would take that 8,042 that I said was the tax capacity value that we're going to do this on, and you would multiply that by the 0.168668662. That means the taxes for the city on this parcel are $1,357. But remember, I said that this was our preliminary levy, and we have now proposed to lower that. So the proposed rate now is 15.083. So that would make this $1,213 now. I don't know what the other taxing districts have done. So if they have lowered theirs, that will again be a savings to you. But they can't go any higher than what you got on your property tax notice. The other components, like I said, are the school, the county, and the miscellaneous. And I did put a note off to the side in the miscellaneous column here. That's mosquito control, Met Council, Scott County, WMO, Scott County CDA, and the Regional Rail Authority. Those are all in that miscellaneous category. And you also have to take into account any referendums that are based off of market rates. And so you have two school districts here. So if you're in the Lakeville School District, you'll take 194. If you're in Prior Lake School District, you'll take 719. Now, if you look at what we're actually paying per home here on the median valued home of $743,400 for general government, the general government adds up to about 38.2% of what your property tax bill is. So that equates to about $463 or $38.61 a month. Public safety equates to about $444 or $37.03 a month. Public works would be 24.6% or $298 or $24.86 a month. Parks are about 0.6% or they're $7 a month or $7 or 59 cents a month. So that's just how we break down what your tax bill is paying for here at the city. if I show you a tax rate comparison of the other cities in Scott County, Credit River does rank 8 out of the 8 cities in Scott County. What I have here is I got this afternoon from the Scott County. And these are based off of preliminary rates that were set in September because they don't have everybody's final levy yet. So Belle Plaine ranks number 1, Jordan second, Elko, New Market, New Prague, Savage, Prior Lake, Shakopee, and then Credit River's on the bottom.
Please don't assume that ranking last is bad.
I was gonna say, I think the ranking should be the other way
Yeah.
around.
Oh, you like the other way around? I put it as the highest is number 1 and we're the lowest. So that's how I looked at it. So, but just remember that these were based on preliminary levies. They couldn't go any higher, but they can be reduced depending upon what the jurisdiction did. We did reduce ours, so ours is now 15.083, not 16.87. Another way to look at this is to look at it like you were paying your bills each month. So the average median household will contribute, and that's at that value that I gave you, will contribute $1,213 per year for city services. And that translates to about $101 a month or $3.32 a day. And in comparison, I took that same house, what it was worth last year and what last year's tax rate was, and 25, it was $97 per month or $3.17 per day. Now I have numbers for the general fund. In the general fund, the key changes are that 2026 wages are budgeted with a 3% cost of living adjustment. The city administrator position was budgeted for half the year in 2025, with contracted services for an interim city administrator budgeted for half the year in 2025 as well. The positions filled this year. The budget reflects salary and benefits with a reduction as there is no longer a need for contracted services. There also was a couple of other positions that went vacant during the year too that are now filled. So we, well, unfortunately, until Friday, we were fully staffed, but or almost. We're short a permit technician or a planner yet, but we have a county technician now. But the 3 main full-time positions are now filled. 2026 will be an election year, so there's going to be an increase because last year there wasn't an election, so we didn't have very much except some maintenance for machines in that budget. So that will increase 28,436 for 26 because there is an election. The planner position has been eliminated and replaced with a permit technician in this budget, and we put in some reduction for contracting costs because now we're contracting for all of that work. There's some additional repairs for City Hall maintenance that have been included. And as I noted previously, there's increased contract costs for fire and police services, and that accounts for $116,238. We also increased public work costs for road maintenance and tree removal and brush trimming that are included in this. So if we look at the revenue sources, this is the revenue side. Property taxes amount for 76.1% of our revenues. Franchise fees are about 0.8%. License and permit fees are 14.5%. Intergovernmental revenue is 3.6%. Charges for services are about 0.4%, and interest earnings are about 4.6%. So this pie kind of gives you an example of that. You can see that our property taxes, we're funded 76.1% from property taxes. Now, in contrast, the next one will show you our expenditures. So here I have them listed out. You can see that the biggest piece of the pie here would be public safety. That's about 37%. Mayor and council is about 1.5%. Administration is about 21.8%. Elections is 1%. The assessor is about 1.9%. Planning is 10.3%. City Hall is 1.7%. Public safety is 37%. Public works is 24.6%. And parks is 0.6%. And we don't have any capital outlay in our general fund expenditures. We have that all in our capital budgets this year. Special revenue funds. Here's a list of our special revenue funds. There's not a lot going on here. Our park fund, we only have $105,000 going out this year. $100,000 is for playground equipment, and that will show up in the capital budgets, and $5,000 in tree replacement. The park fund revenues are mainly interest income and a minimal amount coming from permits. If we have new developments that have to do park dedication fees, that would come in. And what we're restricted is to use those on capital equipment in the parks. We can't use it for maintenance. The other two funds we closed because we didn't use those anymore, and we transferred those to the capital outlay. Debt service. Our debt service fund revenues are funded through the debt portion of the levy and special assessments and interest. Debt service fund expenditures are bond payments, interest payments, and fiscal agent fees. There is no levy for the 2015 bond in 2026 because the bonds will be paid off in February. So there's only a levy for the 2018 bonds and the 2021 bonds. And so here's the numbers here. Capital improvements. The City Hall building and maintenance capital improvements, which are in our plan, are air conditioning for City Hall at $6,000 and the City Hall parking lot for $14,000. They were budgeted in previous years, but they have been moved over because we still have not done them. Planning, we have to do a comprehensive plan for 2028. We have 20,000 in there to start that plan. We have ordinance codification at 2,500 in there. And then general government equipment, we don't have any of that planned for this year. Street improvements, that's our biggest category in capital projects. We have 488,576 planned for reconstruction and overlay projects. We still have 88,000 that we're paying for County Road 27 that we have to repay back to Scott County. And then microservicing, we have budgeted $454,040. Our parks, again, that 100,000 I told you about, that's coming out of the parks budget for playground equipment, and 5,000 for tree replacement. And then we have stormwater, a stormwater management plan. We've budgeted $40,000 there, and storm drain, clean and repair on Lynn Drive, we budgeted another $40,000. And I could see I have a typo there. That should be 80,000 and not 60. Actually, the stormwater management plan is 20,000. The storm drain is 40,000, and the total should be 60. So I apologize. I have a typo there. You can see here in our capital project expenditures that public works is 83% of what we're spending. So that's your roads. We have some general government at 20,000. We have planning at the 22,000 because we have to do that plan. Stormwater is 60,000, and parks, that equipment that we're buying for the playgrounds is 105, but most of it is falling under public works for your roads. Our funding sources, we're using reserves that we have in our capital projects funds for building funds and general buildings and maintenance. We are levying 25,000 there, so we can build those funds up so we have the money. So we're doing it little by little to have the money if we need to make repairs. Planning and for enterprise operations, we have 7,500 budgeted. Street improvements, we're budgeting 150 a year. So when you see that capital expense we have in roads, that's not all coming out in a levy. Only 150,000 has been put in the levy because we're building reserves, but we're using some of those reserves to pay for some of those because we held off on microsurfacing for a few years because we used to seal coat, and seal coat wasn't working as well. So they wanted to find out if the microsurfacing was working better, and it is. So there was a couple years in there where we built up the funds, and now we're using those funds. And then the stormwater, we're budgeting $60,000. And lastly, the enterprise funds. The enterprise funds are your utility funds for your Monterey Heights, Territory, Stonebridge, and South Passage. those are primarily charges for services that you're getting on utility bills. And then if there's any special project or special assessments that were done. And then the expenditures are just what it takes us to maintain those and any of the services that we have that monitor the wells to do that type of stuff if there's any repairs. And so these are covered by the fees that are charged on the utility bills. So there is nothing coming out of any other fund for this. So the only thing would be is I think South Passage has to pay back a loan that we borrowed to South Passage to do some previous improvements. So with that, there's any questions?
All right, thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue. Good presentation. Appreciate that. Jay, is your motion still stand to open the public
It
hearing?
does. Let's open the.
I've got a motion to open the 2026 Truth and Taxation hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Abe. Motion by Seiderbach, second by Zanto to open the Truth and Taxation public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none. At this time, this is the opportunity for any members of the public to, if you wish to comment on the 2026 levy. I would ask that if you do intend to make comment, that you step to the podium, state your name and address, and give us your comments. Mike is first.
Yeah, Mike Haberlack, my address,
Please.
7905 165th Street East, Priorly, Red River. So I attended all the budget workshop meetings except for one. And I appreciate the hard work that you guys did. And I know that when we come up with like a preliminary budget, you always say, oh, we should, the numbers are arbitrary. It seems like, because you're kind of pulling them out of the air and everyone says, well, you can't go higher once we set it, you can go lower. And I think, I can't be for sure, but I think Mr. Marker came in and he didn't want the numbers high as far as the percentage of increase. And everyone said, well, you know, this is just the preliminary budget. You can't go higher, you can go lower. It's not. And I appreciate the hard work that you guys put in, you know, going from the preliminary, what we have now. The hard time that I have a little bit, it's like, those numbers seem kind of like, well, I mean, you're looking at it and I know it's kind of an educated guess. You know, the parks, well, we gotta trim some trees, we gotta do that, we should set it at 50. And then someone said, why don't we do 60? Or I'm just throwing these numbers out there. Well, let's keep it at 50. No, let's do 60 because we can't go higher, we can go lower. So the preliminary budget is always like here. And the numbers are like, I don't know. But it seems like you're kind of, I know you guys worked hard getting the numbers down because I sat there and watched you. But you went from 16% on the levy now down to 15. It's like, I mean, pat yourselves on the back. I mean, you guys got it down. The question I have is this the budget that's going in now? And when does this have to be submitted by? I'm assuming it's by the end of the year.
Yeah, it has to be certified to the county by December 30th and it's voted on tonight.
Yeah,
That's the
if
final.
I voted on tonight. So if I'm standing up here and say 15% increase, I really want 14.
Are you talking though, when you say 15, that's a tax rate?
Right, yeah,
The increase was at 15 something and now it's down to just under 5.
okay. Can you get it down to 4 before the end of the year?
It's 3.6
All right,
increase.
can you get it down to 2? My problem is not with my house value going up. My problem is with city spending. And I know that you guys hold the line good. And I mean, when I sat there and watched you and you hashed it out, the whole snow plowing thing, I was there for the overage and all that. And I know you guys hashed it out, but I just kind of have a hard time when you first start out with the preliminary. Because you could have made the preliminary more. And then you could have end up where you are now, and then you'd really be patting yourself in the back. That's the only problem that I have. I mean, thanks for the hard work, but again, my thing is always with city spending, so Thanks.
Mike, I'll say the only comment to that. You know, Sue, what month did you start? So you're a
22nd of
contractor,
July.
you're a contractor and then jumping right into it, right? So you started after budget season should have started,
Okay.
right?
About 2 months after,
So-
yes.
The goal for next year is to start with our capital budgets a lot sooner than we did this year. Work through these things before we have to set a preliminary levy. This year, we didn't have that opportunity because we didn't have a finance director at the time to pull all that together. So,
And I appreciate the hard work that you were throwing that on it, and your explanation tonight was great as far as explaining everything. So
mhm.
appreciate everything. you-
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Anybody else wish to comment?
Their comment, is that presentation available?
It will be online. I just finished it this afternoon because I was waiting for numbers from the county and they got them to me at 4:01. So I finished it and we'll post it afterwards so that you can refer to it and use it and look things up if you need to.
Sure.
Jay Olson, 9280 Overland Drive in Credit River. Question, what's fiscal disparities? Is that where we're paying into something in the urban core area? Okay, so wasn't there a fight on that at some point about taxation without representation? Isn't there in the past?
It's by state law and what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to even out places. It has to do with how much commercial development you have, like, Bloomington is a big loser because they have the Mall of America. So what it was supposed to do is it was supposed to help out with some of that where people where communities or jurisdictions were fighting over getting the commercial stuff, and it was supposed to take the metropolitan area and it was supposed to even it out so that, like when you had the Bloomington Mall of America and everything was going there, or people were fighting over, certain commercial developments, things like that. And so it was supposed to be spread around because that really benefited the area. And so that it went there. So there are winners and losers, and it all depends upon when your commercial development comes in and how much commercial development you have. So it's a really complicated formula, but it's supposed to even out those pockets where you have the really dense commercial stuff going on, like the Mall of America,
Sure.
and those type of things that make a whole bunch of money and bring everybody in.
Are you able to argue that point with anybody?
No, actually what happens is there's a formula that figures out how much you contribute, and where you get money out is based on where your levy is. They look at everybody's levy the next year, and that's how the money gets reallocated back out again. So we saw a decrease because we lowered our levy from the year before, our tax rate, and so that's why we got less this year than the year before. So it's a complicated formula. I've worked on task force at the state on some of those when we've had it at legislative committees, but it's really meant to spread out some of that between the 7 counties and the jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you. What's our bond rating?
AA+. AA+, which is the highest you can get is a AAA, and we're 1 step below that, which is really, really good for a jurisdiction of our size. That just doesn't happen very often.
And you said that 3.6% increase in taxes, kind of an overall increase or in the levy amount? That's
Levy.
Amount.
Levy
Levy.
amount, okay. All right, and you're my team. You're my team. And I can't go on record saying I like increase in taxes. I mean, I'm against it, so if they're taking notes, I'm against increase in taxes. Now you're gonna ask me, well, how do you do that? And I said, I don't know. But if I had a 2x4 and I put it on the floor in front of you and asked you to walk across it, you'd all get up and walk across it. If I put it at 10 feet high, you'd probably think I'm gonna fall. I know there's a way you can walk across the 2x4. I just want you to be challenged and still go after fighting. I don't care what Belle Plaine pays. I don't care what Jordan pays. That's not my game. My game is Credit River. And I want to make sure that where we're at, what we're doing is keeping that expenditure piece under control. And I thank you for all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Mr. Conroy?
17215 Joanne Drive. Capital project expenditures, that's what's gonna happen? So that's $1 million, is that $1 million for public works?
Mm-hmm.
So is that roads or ditches or seal coating or grading?
It's 454,000 is for microsurface, so I don't know which roads are on the list this year,
On the capital improvement plan.
but it's in the capital improvement plan. And then 488,000 is reconstruction and overlays, so I know that we have an inventory in our CIP. If you look at the budget document that is in the regular city council meeting, it will have the capital improvement plan in there. I'm not sure which roads are on there, but I know that our engineer has mapped out all the roads, and we have it really detailed about which ones need it based on the condition of the roads, which ones are the next ones to have a reconstruct or overlay.
So you're saying there's a chance mine might get done next year?
I'd have to look.
Okay,
If you want to email, I can look and see what roads are on the list.
okay. Cause that's $1 million.
488 is for like an overlay, and then microsurfacing,
Let's see.
which is replace the seal coating, is 454, yeah.
And the rest would be ditches or mowing or.
Well, the rest of the $1
Strike.
million is just 88,000 that we have to pay back to Scott County for the County Road 27 repayment.
All right, good job, guys.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, I take a motion to close the truth and taxation hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Bill. Motion by Schomer, second by Soderbach. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move right into general business. 7.1, consider the 2026 city budget. Resolution 2025-41 adopting the 2026 final budget and 2025-42 adopting the 2026 final levy. Anything else on that one, Sue, before we?
I don't have any, because everything I presented in the truth and taxation hearing is the budget.
Perfect. Thank you, Sue. Council members, comments, questions, discussion?
Well, after all the snow, maybe we should be, and the complaints about it, maybe we should be adding back to the budget. Kidding.
Nothing.
Okay, well,
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-41.
so a motion for this 2026 city budget resolution 2025-41. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I'll take Markert for the motion, second by Soderbach. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Now I'm looking for a motion for the 25-42 adopting the 2026 final levy.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Bill.
Second. Okay.
All right, I'll take
Take
Schomer
over.
on that one. So I got Markert motion, second by Schomer, for adopting the 2026 final levy, resolution 2025-42, adopting that final levy at $2,841,500. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, everybody, for your work on that one. Moving on to 7.2, peddlers, solicitors, and transient merchants. And that will be Linda, clerk, you're at.
Mayor and council members, during staff's review of our city ordinance regulating peddlers, solicitors, and transient merchants, it was identified that the section regarding solicitors needed some clarification and amendment. The existing language was confusing and appeared to imply that solicitors were subject to the same licensing standards as peddlers and transient merchants. I worked with the city attorney's office to have them update the language and amend the original ordinance. So that solicitors are to be registered and should not be charged a fee. Tonight, I'm asking the council to approve the amended ordinance to bring this to the city of Credit Rivers peddler, solicitor, and transient merchant ordinance up to date. I'm also asking you to approve the resolution to summarize the lengthy ordinance for cost-saving purposes for printing in the newspaper. And finally, I'm asking the council to discuss a fee if you would like to charge for the peddlers or transient merchants permit. Peddlers and transient merchants are required to undergo a background check and pass that check prior to permit issuance, which requires staff time and administrative processing. I surveyed 7 neighboring or comparable cities for permit fees for peddlers and transient merchants and found that all had fees for them except for one that did not charge for a transient merchant. For full disclosure, most cities issue very few, if any, peddler or transient merchant permits on site. So I will take any questions you may have at this time and open it for discussion.
Perfect. Thank you, Linda. Linda, can you maybe dive in just a little bit? What were the key differences in what we were not compliant on? In the
The key thing is the solicitors we are charging for, and we cannot charge for solicitors.
Even for like a background check?
We don't do background checks.
Okay.
We're supposed to, when they come in with an application, we have however much time it takes us to get a registration out to them, we're supposed to turn that around. But the peddlers and transient merchants do require us to do the background check,
Okay.
but no background checks on solicitors, so.
Bill, it looks like you have a question.
Keep going. I think.
Is
it
You just had
background
the look on your face like you're ready to.
Does the background check cost us money when we?
I believe that's in the contract with the sheriff's office, because the sheriff's office is the one that does it.
So
for
we
us,
should cover our costs then for that. And that's what the 20, do we know how much it is?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I just know that it's included with the budget, that we have, the contract with the sheriff's office.
So if I know what we're trying to get, we're trying to prevent people from door knocking or
Correct.
bothering us.
I mean,
What if I'm a pump, what
I'm
if?
sorry, Mr. Council.
Yeah, that's
That-
not
that's
the
not
language
what
you
the
can
ordinance
use.
that they're trying to do.
Oh, okay.
No.
I've heard a lot of complaints, including my own, that I get a lot of people knocking on doors and I always ask them, where's your permit? They don't have one.
Yeah.
To solicit
So they're
things.
required to get a permit, but we don't issue permits as a gatekeeping function to keep people from doing that in the city.
Okay,
It's to make sure that they're bona fide folks doing lawful activity.
okay, thank you. It's a more diplomatic way of looking at it.
It's an important distinction.
Yeah. So let's say I got permission from a farmer that's already done his harvesting and all that, and they leave me space and I have a whole bunch of pumpkins I want to sell for 3 months in, September, October and November, or 2 months. As someone that wants to do that, I'll have to get it, I'll have to apply to do that. And
Mr.
yeah,
Mayor and Councilmember Markert, there is a right to farm in our constitution. If you grew those pumpkins,
yeah,
you'd be exempt from the permit requirement. If you're an enterprising farmer who wants to go somewhere in the city of Credit River to set up a shop, you're a transient merchant and you would need a permit.
a permit. Okay. And one per year? Is that right? Like, there's no
Annual permit.
it's not a deadline. Like if I wanted to be there for 3 months, I could be there for 3 months. It's not like I had to reapply if it's, I see it's 14 days. Does that mean I can only do it for 14 days, or that just means that I'm considered a transient merchant if I do it for longer than 14?
That's right. That's
Okay.
about transients.
All right.
Right, and Councilmember Marker, but if you're a farmer and you're selling corn or apples on your farm at your property, you don't need this.
There's an exemption.
All right.
Anything else? Okay,
I guess the reason we started the soliciting thing was kind of to Bill's point. And there were some other businesses that came in that weren't licensed really to do work in Minnesota, so
came from, what, 10 years ago we started it or so?
2016,
There you go.
just about 10 years, yep. In fact, it was ordinance number 1 of 2016.
Can't
Okay,
believe we got away with it that long.
bet you can count on one hand the number of permits for
Yeah.
soliciting we've issued too.
We did.
Because to Bill's point, most of the people that come knocking on my door don't have that permit. In fact, I came across somebody that tried forged one this last year.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have to come up with a rate before we ask for a motion?
No, the rate would be with our fee schedule that would be adopted in January.
January, okay.
Yeah. So the requested actions here are first adopt the ordinance, and that would be, 2025-07. Next would be adopt the resolution to approve the summary publication of the ordinance. The third requested from staff action would be to discuss the fees so that that could be placed on the fee schedule in the January organization meeting. So if you guys are comfortable with the ordinance, I would take a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-07.
Can I just make a statement here?
Yep.
Or maybe a question. What do we encourage our residents to do when they have a solicitor come to their door? Are we legally able to request the solicitation permit? And they
Yes.
should have it on hand, and if they
Yeah.
don't?
I ask them every time.
I'll have-
My first question, before I even say hello, it's, can I see your solicitation permit?
Okay.
Mhm.
And what's the enforcement?
They don't leave. I think it's a misdemeanor.
It's misdemeanor to do this without having
Mhm.
a permit. But to be clear on the vocabulary, solicitor and peddler mean two different things.
Right.
Solicitor does not need a permit. They just need to be registered. If they're coming to sell you something, not out of their trunk, but to take orders for something, they don't have to have a permit. We don't have the authority to regulate that.
But they need to be registered with the
But they
city.
need to be registered.
Correct.
So I'm starting
So
to
that
think like,
Changes it a little bit.
athletic fundraisers.
So we always,
Those are exempt.
yeah, we always
Because
accepted
it's
the,
school.
right, the nonprofit sort of stuff for
Yep.
the kids, right? That was always, even in the original ordinance, I believe that we made a clear distinction between the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the statement, then I think it'd be great to have it on the website as just something to highlight maybe in the springtime if we start to see a little more foot traffic in the neighborhood. So
It would be nice
What does
to
that mean?
know who's registered.
who's registered and
Yeah.
what you,
So,
what's,
so we
their
know, so we know who we can ask and who,
Are we,
which ones we're calling the sheriff on.
Mr. Mayor, are we suggesting that we actually publish on our website somewhere, actually the people that have the registrations?
Yeah.
So that it.
That's what I would like to see.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Mhm.
So I've been saying it wrong. Most of them are solicitors, not peddlers. They don't have Tupperware that they
Right.
bring with you. It's,
That would be a right.
so
Right.
we need to
I
say,
don't think the bug,
Do you-
the
let
bug
me-
people might have the bug spray with them.
No.
maybe, so we have to say, show me your registration
Yes.
statement. Okay, gotta remember that. All right,
Yep.
thank you.
It's good to change this so that we get the terminology correct and we
Yeah.
understand what the legal implications are. So, okay,
And Mr. Mayor and Council, just to be clear, also, we're talking about commercial activity here.
yeah,
If someone's here as part of a religious mission or
Mhm.
political canvassing, they don't need a permit
correct. Registered. They don't need to be registered.
or a permit.
Yep. All right, so back to, if we're good with that ordinance, I take a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-07.
make the motion.
Thank you, Abe.
I'll second it.
I'll take Leroy's second on that one. So motion by Zonto, second by Schomer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. And as a follow-up from that, I would take a motion to adopt resolution 2025-43 to approve the summary publication of the ordinance 2025-07.
So moved.
Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Thank you, Abe. Motion by Margaret, second by Zonto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
So just to be clear, I can't buy steaks out of the back of the van anymore.
Hearing no motion passes. Correct, you can't buy steaks out of the back of the van anymore. Unless they have a permit.
Unless you get awesome.
Yeah. All right, now let's talk about the fees. So again, now staff is looking for direction on what we'd like to see to cover our costs anytime we need to issue these permits. We don't have an exact cost of what it would take for us to do.
We voted on the second one, didn't
We did, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, yeah, we got it in.
we? Okay.
What do the other cities do Linda as far as fees?
Anywhere between $25 and $250, so very small rate.
Oh, well, then.
Savage was the only one that charged for peddlers and not transient merchant, but everybody else had different fees. Set aside. It was $65, $50. One city had peddlers for $150, transient merchants were $250. One city had a $50 background check for both peddler and transient merchant. The peddler was $160 on top of that. And the transient merchant, they were both $160 on top of that, sorry. One city had $30 and another city had a $20 for background check and $5 per day per applicant, which that would be kind of hard to,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I think it's important to cover our costs and our staff time. 25 seems like that might just cover a background check, feels like. But I think
More than that.
it's possible, right? I don't know, right?
Can we let that wait and just find out what the sheriff's department is actually charging us for background checks?
Yeah, I mean,
'Cause
I think,
don't think we should be charging, we shouldn't be making money on these.
no, that's something.
It should just cover the cost.
Right, and
It should cover the cost.
Jay, I think that's a good idea, that maybe the action item is, hey, we'd like to see a fee there.
Right.
That covers our time
Yeah.
and costs, right? But
Yeah.
not overboard, right?
Right.
That gives some opportunity for staff to research that part of it before we have to set our fee ordinance in January.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Linda, do you think you have like, there would be like an hour of your time into this and then a background check?
Do it, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So does that make sense, Linda, then to take a little time to do a little
Yeah.
research on that and then have that proposed for the fee ordinance? Okay. Anybody else have any other comment or question on that?
I like the idea of having 0 for the transient merchants. Because they typically live here. And they would do a background check, we'd do a background check on them. Okay, well, we don't have to decide. You said one city doesn't charge for transient, only for peddlers. Who was that?
Savage.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that one? No, good. All right, we'll move into 7.3, direction to staff on whether to draft another petition to Scott County to transfer ditch 4, Administrator Jelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So last week, Friday, most of the council and city staff had a meeting with a couple of the county commissioners and some county staff. We talked a little bit of County Ditch 4. There wasn't a lot of direction on where to go from the county's perspective on what they're going to do. It didn't seem like they're going to move from their position of they're not going to, it doesn't appear that they're going to pay for any more improvements on the ditch. So what it seems like is they are sending it back to the city, and it's going to require another petition from the city back to the county. If the city would like to take transfer of the ditch, it's going to require the city to take the ditch as is, with the caveat of or the exception that we'll take of the legal language of everything up to the point of transfer. We'll accept no liability up to the point of transfer. But there won't be any additional work done to the ditch up to this point. I think is kind of the general takeaway from that meeting. we heard some language from the ditch attorney at the ditch board meeting in November. That there is an additional petition that we did need to make. We heard, also that the redetermination of benefits, which was going to be $250,000, would really be about $70,000. So that was a change that we heard. So that was different, which was a little surprising for the city staff. I think, am I missing anything else from the meeting?
Mayor and council, my summary would be the same as Steve's. They will not make any repairs. They would entertain, at least this group said they would entertain an agreement where our petition would include an indemnity clause, backward looking, not forward looking. And the change in the quotes are the same. There's obviously more discussed in the meeting, but the takeaways were those.
Perfect.
I think their biggest concern was that they don't feel that the ditch is going to become a natural waterway. It's no longer an agricultural ditch. It's now stormwater drain or stormwater. So they don't feel the current benefiting properties are, they said fair. It's not a fair assessment to the current benefiting role. Which I think everyone here probably agrees with, that the current benefiting role is not accurate. So I think the ditch board probably feels that an adjustment does need to be made, and they feel if they're going to transfer the ditch, that they feel that the entire city, it would be better that we redetermine it to the entire city as a whole. So,
Okay. Council, comments, questions?
I have a couple questions for the city attorney. So getting back to the indemnity, there's something called the Minnesota buffer law, and it requires public ditches to have a 16.5-foot buffer. Public waters are required to have a 50-foot buffer, but I think we're talking about public ditches right now, or the ditch today is a public ditch.
Today, yeah.
Today. So if we assume responsibility for this, but we find that the 16.5-foot buffer wasn't maintained by the drainage authority. I'm not going to call them county anymore. They said specifically it's not the county, it's the ditch board. If the ditch board did not maintain that 16.5-foot buffer, that we could, what would happen? Do you know?
The way that the county would accept a transfer petition from the city would absolve the county of responsibility for maintaining that as a ditch. It's not a ditch in our hands, so those requirements don't apply to us. The county could be liable to some third party if their failure to maintain the ditch had caused damage during their period of ownership. But the fact that we're taking it from them, not up to standards of a current ditch, would not be something we could go back to the county for legally.
So if it was, if we agreed to have it transferred to us, what would it be to us? Would it be now a public water? They call it a natural water course or a natural waterway, or what, I forget what his term was, but what would it be to us? And would we have to maintain a buffer? And maybe you don't, that's probably unfair asking you
Without
that, but
getting into the weeds, pardon the pun.
yeah.
I'm
sure there are a lot of
totally
them.
not intended. We will not have the duties to maintain it like a ditch. We will have the duty, because we're planning to use it for our own stormwater as a water authority, to comply with our own permits, federal, state law on discharges into public water. What all that entails factually, I'm not the best person to answer. I don't know if Shane, sorry to throw it to him off the cuff, might have some more sense of what that really means on the ground. But I could look into it further if you want a more detailed answer to what exactly our liabilities might be when it's not a ditch anymore, it's just a
Right.
river into which we're discharging.
And I tried to answer my question looking at the MPDS or the MPS4 or whatever, and I couldn't really answer that question. Like, what is it and what is our responsibilities to maintain that? I know there's responsibilities of what you could put in it, but if we get something that's really like hasn't been maintained in 10 years, I mean, what do we have to do to, if we assume responsibility, we don't know what we're getting ourselves into.
Shane, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that part of that discussion there, and if there's any technical knowledge that you can share with us.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and council, I mean, the buffer law that Councilor Markert was referencing, and that's been in place for, I don't know, probably 10 years or so. And it applies to lakes and rivers as well. I've never seen a situation in which the local municipality has been has somehow been responsible for enforcing that statewide buffer law. So I'll just, I don't know legally or, you know, but I just have never seen it. So, and, you know, I go to, there's a group called the Minnesota City Stormwater Coalition that has meetings with basically, I don't know, I think there's 80 or so cities from the metro in the Stormwater Coalition, and there's an annual meeting every year. And if that was the case, I'm sure it would have been discussed. So I don't think that it's happened in Minnesota. As far as what our responsibility is to maintain the ditch, I think our responsibility would be the same as any other City of Credit River infrastructure. So the same as our storm sewer in some of our roads, the same as our cross culverts, the same as our stormwater ponds. So we have an obligation to make sure that they're functioning, but we don't have there's not like a standard of care or, you know, any type of scale. So just because we have some sediment or maybe a tree down doesn't necessarily mean that it's no longer functioning. So I'll stop there, and if that sparked any additional questions, I'll.
Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you.
If I may add
Peter.
something or maybe nuance something that Shane said. This is in some ways not like some other city infrastructure in that it's a river. It's a DNR water. And so while people might want to make claims if things don't get cleaned up fast enough and there's flooding and the city may be exposed to having to deal with them, the city will have immunity defenses based on what this thing is. It won't be treated like a curb and gutter.
Leroy.
Question, Shane, does the DNR and the Corps of Engineers have any real jurisdiction over this and over us if we take it over?
The DNR does have jurisdiction over Credit River. You would need a permit from the DNR to work in the river.
Okay.
Mhm. So is it correct then that my assumption that then what this really grants us then is easements and right of access? That if we were to do some maintenance events that, or, you know, unclogging something, if there was something that we decided was something we wanted to take care of, that this would make it easier for us to access those areas. DNR permit needed, but other than that.
Mr. Mayor, you're correct, as well as a mechanism for setting up funding for those activities.
Okay. Do you have a question? Comment?
I think it rains everywhere and things drain into things. And we have quite a few stormwater ponds. We have other culverts. We have other things that we have to deal with. I think, you know, when it spreads across the entire city, everybody's affected by a stormwater need in some way. Almost everybody. I mean, there might be a couple outliers, but the thing that kind of comes across to me, and you can, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong. If we don't adopt this thing from the county and let the county abandon it, and it just basically goes back to the DNR. We could still get a permit from them to do work in it, but we wouldn't have the access and in the vehicle to get to it to do any work. Is that correct? We'll charge for it.
You would neither have the access nor the mandate to do anything in that river. There'd be no, we need to establish a public purpose for the city. If it's not part of our drainage system that we're maintaining, whose problem are we solving if we're gonna go in there and do it? Is it a private property owners or is it a number of property owners? At what point does this become a city issue rather than a private issue? If it's not our drainage system.
Right, and if somebody has an obstruction downstream from them and it floods their property, builds up, backs up to it, they don't actually have the authority to go deal with it downstream, correct?
Not unilaterally, not without cooperation.
Cooperation or taking them to court, right? If they don't cooperate. I mean, you always have a,
Yes, but the go to court is always an avenue, but not a guaranteed outcome.
So it would behoove us to take this over, but just shield ourselves, be very careful how we do it. Would that be a advice or not?
The policy question on whether to take it over, I don't think is a legal question, but definitely we want to, if we do it, set up the all of the best sort of barriers we can around our immunities, around decision-making for what funds a city with limited resources has to be maintaining a river channel.
Guideline.
Yes, it'd be a matter of policy and guidelines and budget setting.
Budget setting, yeah. Yeah, and planning, right? I mean, that's the, the goal of having our engineer work on a stormwater improvement plan is to understand, we own stormwater function already today. We don't have an ongoing budget item for that. We came into this season with, what did we end up spending? 50 unexpectedly because we didn't have a plan for maintaining stormwater. So that's part of any infrastructure we take on, whether it's stormwater or road or anything, is proper planning for those events so that it doesn't hit you in a surprise like that.
Well, it allows us to have a long-term budget process like we do basically with our streets and road maintenance that we have. That's worked very, very well since that went into place close to 20 years ago.
Yep. Were there's conversations still about the fund balance that would be transferred, because they were looking at deposit before, so that's.
we get nothing.
We'd get, it's gonna end, the fund balance will end negatively, probably 20,000 or more. And the county stated that they would likely use other funds to cover that rather than another assessment.
So, sorry, you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
I have some questions on the process. If we were to petition for the transfer, so we would be called, I'm reading the statute, we'd be called the Water Management Authority. That's my
We are,
understanding.
yes,
We
we
are.
We are.
Okay. So we would have to petition the ditch board or whatever they call themselves.
That's right.
And we would have to propose to have it be transferred and show that the transfer is necessary for the orderly management of storm surface floodwaters, including management for water quality purposes. So we would have to put that in our petition, correct?
That's correct, and that'd be part of an engineering report. That
Okay.
is something else I think you're about to get to in the statute that we
Yeah.
have to submit with the petition.
And then it must indicate the impact, if any, that the transfer will have on the properties utilizing a ditch system or a drainage system for an outlet. Then it includes the engineering report. And so we're not done by just submitting a letter to the ditch board saying we want it. There has to be a public hearing. I want to make sure that they have had a public hearing, but that's not the same public hearing that we would have with this transfer. So there's still an opportunity for those in Credit River that don't want this to be transferred, that they have a chance to speak out and say that in the public hearing when it's set for a petition to transfer? Is that correct?
That's correct, Councilmember Marker. We would just be the petitioner, not the decider on this.
Right.
On this, and so the public would have a right to be heard by the ditch board when they are making a decision whether to transfer to us.
Okay.
I believe the ditch board actually still has a public hearing open. They've
That's
continued it.
That's
but
the
they
question I
haven't-
have, though. That's
That's-
a different
So do they
public
have to
hearing.
close that one and open a different?
That's their
Public
abandonment
They
hearing,
would
right?
need,
Right.
right, they would need a new public hearing, a new set of proceedings. We have not so far drafted a petition. What we have done is drafted a proposed contract that at the staff level, we understood was agreed all around.
Yeah.
About we will petition, but conditionally. If you'll agree to this, then submit a petition.
Mhm.
That was not acceptable to the ditch board. So what's in front of the council tonight is, do you want to direct staff to get to work on a petition, which involves all of the things that Councilmember Marker described, including professional work, although some of that, I believe the ditch board has offered to help with the engineering report. So the next step would be to do all of that and then bring the petition back to the council to authorize us to submit it. And then that would trigger the whole process at the ditch board, including a new public hearing.
Yeah. And then I read in the statutes, if we were successful transferred to us, we would have to pay the ditch board's lawyer fees and their analysis, their people's fees too, because once the hearing happens, if there's any residents that object to the transfer, there has to be a technical panel that gets put together and they have to look at all this stuff according to the statutes. So, that costs money too. And it's my understanding that whoever wins, like if you consider us winning by getting the transfer, we have to pay for all those costs too. If the board eventually says, no, we're not transferring it, then they would have to pay. So I guess you've answered my questions. I wanted to make sure that there still has to be another hearing and residents have the opportunity to object to it. And
In front of the county ditch board.
yes.
In terms of costs, you are correct as well, unless that's something the ditch board was willing to negotiate with us on.
Okay. So we could be looking at, did we estimate what it would cost Shane to do his engineering report, or haven't we ever talked about that?
I don't believe we have.
Okay. Shane, have you done those before?
Counselor Marker, I have not.
Jay?
It was my understanding from the conversation that actually the county was going to help with those items.
Mhm.
As well as, I think, it's still a negotiation, so. If there's something to tidy up the thing, we asked that the county take care of it. They did express that there were going to be some additional costs actually to transfer, et cetera, and I thought that it was my recollection that they were talking about covering those and that they had some additional funds from some of the other abandonments that they thought that they would cover with that. I think we should probably clarify that, but I don't think that we should. I think that they're not gonna cover it. I think that's something
county
that
staff
staff to
made.
deal with.
Mhm. I think that's gotta be part of our direction to staff is to
Right.
to vet that piece out. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, I would be happy to take a motion to direct staff to work on this.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jay. Motion by Schomer, second by Seiderbach to direct staff to work on a petition and work with Scott County on the transfer of ditch 4. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. 7.4 Sheriff's Agreement. Administrator Jelinski. Pass this off to you for introduction.
So this is a new 5-year contract. For services. Obviously the clerk name is incorrect, which we will have corrected in those spots. The financial piece of it is what you have seen when the sheriff when Sheriff Hennon presented already, so that the numbers are still the same as before. And Councilmember Market, I'll take the questions that you had on the contract.
Yeah, I have a couple
Yeah.
questions. Number one, did they give us something and, or did we go through a negotiating process? How did that work? They just say, here it is?
They did, yeah.
Did we ask for anything different than what they gave us?
No, this is what they presented to us.
Do we have an opportunity to go back to them and ask them for something different?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because the contract ends at the end of this month and we don't have a lot of time.
No,
But-
if we want to ask them for something else,
I would like to request that we go back and ask them to add back the language that they pulled out language in the new contract. There was a clause there that said, however, any increase in annual total cost should be consistent with the attached exhibit A and here's the part, and cannot exceed 3% of the total cost for the preceding calendar year unless otherwise agreed in writing. And it's in the old contract. So if you do a side by side, you'll be able to see that.
okay.
If you could ask for that, it's just, we're not saying we're not going to spend more, agree to more than 3%, but we can actually get approval for that. It would also be nice to put some language in there to talk about, rather than, they're talking about maybe next year adding another deputy. And I'd like some language in here that kind of like explains why we would need one. So the new deputy would have to be based on something, a metric, like call incidents went up 50%. That requires, during the normal hours or outside the normal hours of where we have our deputies. And I don't know what the right words are, but having a metric in there that says they just can't, here's another deputy for you without like justifying that we have the call volumes or the incidents volumes to justify a third deputy. Because I hear that a lot from residents saying, why did we even have two? Because when you look at the volumes, they've gone up and there's reasons why they go up. I think they're counting traffic stops a lot more than they used to, or they're counting traffic incidents a lot more. But there should be a way we can at least have a say in adding another deputy. Hopefully I didn't butcher that, but maybe you can go back and ask for that.
What clause did it say in here that was talking about third deputy, Bill?
No, I didn't, but they talked when they presented.
When they present the report out, right? He has it in his, he said, I think his statement was this last time around that was probably not for a couple more years that we would be back talking about that, but that doesn't mean that they can just throw it upon us, right? We've got to approve the fee schedule annually.
If I recall, I thought he said they're going to talk about it next year for 2027. And I haven't seen call volumes that justify a third. When you take a look at the call volumes they're doing today, it averages out to be three to four calls a day that they're at least tracking. And that would mean that every call is 2.5, 3 hours. And I just want to put I forget, I got a mental block. I want to put so there's
Well, it would be
there's
an
a term
amendment,
for it.
it would be amendment to the agreement though, Bill. It would require amendment to the agreement to add another officer.
Right.
Then we would have to approve that anyways.
I would like though for them to justify it, not just say we need another one.
And we would have that opportunity if we were to approve an amendment.
It's not actually in this contract.
I know
It says that they're gonna add, or there's
No.
conditions for adding one, right? So
I'm trying to put in language that they just can't make that statement saying we're thinking about adding one in 2028. We're going
they'd
to
still
talk
have
about
to
it
come
next
to
year.
us.
Right.
They would still have to get approval for that. We'd have to negotiate.
But they couldn't come for us and ask for it unless we reach a certain metric. That's what I'm trying to prevent. Because I think it's very hard for us to say, if we say no, then do we lose the contract because we said no? It's kind of like we don't have any leverage. Have we ever had any, did we push back on the second deputy that we got, even though volumes didn't change when we got the second deputy?
The second deputy was to maintain 7-day-a-week coverage, right? With one deputy, we were only getting 4 days out of a 7-day week. And so it was, you know, you couldn't cover a full week. And the biggest thing is if you recall, Sheriff Hennon wants to make sure that we're north of 60 to 70% covered by the contract, because that makes it defensible in the eyes of the county board and the other, you know, public institutions in this county that would be pushing on the board to say, why does Credit River get away from having to pay for, you know, law enforcement like we do? So then, so we have to, you know, make sure that we're conscious of the contract is in a spot where, you know, politically the sheriff has, you know, can maintain this contract. Because if the county board comes back and says, nope, we're not, you know, going to maintain that anymore.
I'm all for fair. Yeah, I'm not asking for any deal.
I know, but
I'm just
that's
trying
the
to.
point of why he'd have to come back to us, and we'd have to work on a third option if we were to do something like that. So it's not just there's no option in this agreement today that just says they can add that. I think the metric that he'd be looking at, that the sheriff's office would be looking at, is coverage of calls by the contract deputy.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Marker, I believe what you're asking for is language in this contract that would establish criteria for how the contract could be amended. And that would not be binding in any way in a contract, because the amendment would require the same formality as the original contract. That's only effective if there's a subordination kind of relationship between the two kinds of contracts. Here, it might have political value, but it would not have any legal value.
Okay. Those were the only two things that I asked. So you go back and I forgot my first one.
It was the increase.
Yes, add back that language. That's the extra is just the same.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Aren't you okay with it otherwise if they agree to add 3% in there?
Yes,
Or
I
the
am.
3% cap?
Yeah, I mean, is that something that you would want to make a motion to, you know, tentatively agree on that if that comes back that way, so we don't have to bring it back to the council again?
I would be.
So you're making that motion, Bill?
I'll make that motion.
So Bill, is your motion to approve?
My motion is to approve the contract that's in front of us with an amendment, adding back the old language about the annual cost increase can be no more than, it can be more than, just, it's the
Without
language
approved.
without being
Yeah.
addressed, yeah. Sorry.
I'll second it.
And do you want to put contingent upon legal review? And Peter, have you reviewed this and you okay with the rest of it?
Mayor and council, I have reviewed it. There's a couple of boilerplates that don't really apply because we're not providing services to them. They are to us,
Mhm.
but nothing as of any
Okay,
concern.
so we don't need to do any further legal.
We do
review.
not.
Perfect, all right.
We might as well make the change for the.
I'll
same
change
time.
it.
Oh, Karen, oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Thank you.
Yep.
Forgot about that.
Perfect. All right. So I've got a motion by Markert, second by Schomer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, staff and council member updates. I'll look to my right and we'll work around the table. Peter, anything?
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
No.
No.
No? Sue, anything?
Auditors will be here on Wednesday to do prelim audit.
You looking for help?
Linda? Jane, I saw you turn your camera back on. Must mean you have something. No?
Nothing.
Perfect. All right.
Like to make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Zonta to adjourn, second by Schomer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Have a great holiday, everybody. Be safe. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I would just, but I.